The onset of the War of the Third Coalition commenced with the naval engagements, as British Admiral Nelson clashed with his French counterpart, Villeneuve, in a bid for control over the Atlantic, culminating in a pivotal Battle of Trafalgar. Yet, the land theater held greater significance for Napoleon, with the decisive Battle of the Three Emperors unfolding amidst the snow-laden fields of Austerlitz. Prior French triumph at Marengo and Hohenlinden in 1800 compelled Austria to seek a separate peace, formalized in the Treaty of the Linnoville, which recognized French dominions in the Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, Tuscany, and the left bank of the Rhine. Concurrently, Russian Caesar Paul I drew closer to Napoleon, entertaining notions of an Indian campaign against Britain until his 1801 assassination, allegedly sponsored by British agents. His successor Alexander I displayed a more conciliatory stance toward Britain, but refrained from rejoining the conflict, ultimately culminating in the 1802 Treaty of Amiens between France and Britain, heralding the end of the Second Coalition hostilities. Nevertheless, underlying tensions persisted, prompting Britain to renew hostilities a year later. What would later be dubbed as the War of the Third Coalition unfolded at sea. Napoleon's aspirations of ferrying 200,000 troopers to the British Isles necessitated naval supremacy, prompting British efforts to neutralize both the French and Spanish fleets, the later being new allies of France. Reluctance from other European powers to engage shifted following two pivotal events. Firstly, the seizure and subsequent execution of Duke d'Enghien, a Bourbon representative, on charge of treason in Neutral Baden in March 1804, sent shockwaves through European royal courts. Secondly, Napoleon's coronations as Emperor of the French in 1804, followed by his proclamation as King of Italy in 1805, elevated his status to this of his Austrian and Russian counterparts, prompting Sweden, Naples, Austria, and Russia to ally with Britain against him. With Allied forces outnumbering Napoleon by almost 2-1, their strategic plan entitled deployed Russian troops to the Prussian border, reinforcing Austrian and Russian forces in the Holy Roman Empire, threatening northern France and the Low Countries with Swedish and Russian troops, and pushing French forces out of Italy. Faced with this formidable coalition, Napoleon recognized the need for a decisive blow to neutralize one of these fronts and stand a chance of prevailing in the conflict. The attack toward Italy, a strategy he had employed in the previous conflicts. With approximately 300,000 troops near Boulogne, he dispatched 70,000 under Massena's command to safeguard France's southern borders in Italy, maintaining a force of 30,000 at Boulogne. The remaining 180,000 troops commenced their advance towards the Rhine, reaching it by September 25th, bolstered by 10,000 reinforcements from Bavaria and Württemberg. Meanwhile, Australian General Mack and his 70,000 soldiers were tasked with securing the route to Vienna along the river end, awaiting Kutuzov's arrival. However, Mack opted to relocate his base to Ulm, fortifying the mountainous Black Forest region, positioning himself 17 kilometers distant from Kutuzov. Some historians attribute the subsequent challenges to miscommunicate between the Austrians and Russians, owing to the usage of the Gregorian and Julian calendars, resulting in a 12-day disparity, hindering timely coordination. Napoleon contemplated various strategic maneuvers, deliberating whether to converge with Kutuzov in the east or advance southward into Italy. Yet, defying expectations, French forces crossed the Rhine on September 26, while 2 corps feigned an assault near the Black Forest, diverting Mack's attention. Only 1 corps threatened the Austrians from the north. Executing rapid maneuvers, French troops swiftly encircled Mack's forces, severing their supply lines by October 6. Mack's attempts to break the encirclement on October 8th were thwarted, and subsequent efforts met similar fates, leading to the blockade of the Austrian army at Ulm by October 14th. Although a contingent on cavalry briefly breached the French line, they were swiftly apprehended. Then on October 20th, upon confirmation of Kostovo's delayed arrival, resulted in the capture of over 60,000 Austrian troops, while French losses amounted to approximately 2,000 soldiers. The Ulm campaign emerged as a pivotal triumph for Napoleon, epitomizing by his bold proclamation, "If I can't be in London in 15 days, I will be in Vienna by the middle of November." On the 26th, French forces consolidated and commenced their eastward movement. Upon learning of Mack's defeat, Kutuzov opted to retreat with his 60,000 troops toward the secondary Russian army under Beethoven. Despite engaging in several rearguard battles, the Allied forces advanced sluggishly and failed to secure the Austrian capital. By November 12th, Vienna fell to the French, with Napoleon triumphant entry into the city on the 15th. As initially foretold, at Kosovo, the later successfully joined forces with the Beethoven on the 20th, amassing a combined strength of 19,000 soldiers and 380 guns. Meanwhile, Napoleon troops, exhausted from instant marching and combat, were disparted along the Danube, with containing the Austrian Italy, leaving him with a mere 53,000 troops and 157 guns. Recognizing the need for a decisive engagement, Napoleon ordered halt at Baronne in present-day Czech Republic on 23rd. While summoning nearby corps totaling 20,000 men to reinforce his position, simultaneously he projected an air of vulnerability, aiming to goad the enemy into attacking. Abandoning the town of Austerlitz and Pratsanites, Napoleon also attempted negotiation with Austrian Emperor Francis and Russian Caesar Alexander, the latter of whom received French weakness. Despite Kosovo's counsel for caution, he was ousted, yielding to more aggressive factions within the Allied command structures. The Battle of Austerlitz unfolded on December 2nd, 1805, deliberately weakening his light flank as bait. Napoleon positioned nearby reinforcements to cover the exposed position, concentrating the majority of his forces in the center and left flank. Anticipating the enemy's strategy, Napoleon orchestrated a calculated retreat from the village of Telnitz as Allied forces initiated their assault at 7 a.m. As the French approached Sokolnitz castle, a second column joined the fray, with the third column arriving shortly after. The skirmish persisted until Marshal Davout's corps intervened, aiding the French in reclaiming Telnitz. Despite this, the Allies, outnumbering the French 2-1, drove them out of the village. Davout's remaining forces bolstered the defense of Sokolnitz, a pivotal element in the French strategy as they pressed against mounting pressure. The Allied right flank aimed to pin down the French left, seeking to exploit this advantage to crush the French right by 8 a.m. As the sun dispersed the morning fog, Napoleon discerned the only Kutuzov and his fourth column occupied the Pratsanites. Capitalizing on this revelation, Caesar Alexander ordered his column to assail the French right from the north. Responding swiftly, Napoleon directed his center forward at 9 a.m., stunning the Allies and wresting control of the Pratsanites. However, reinforcement from the Allied right soon arrived, wresting back this crucial position. He deployed his reserves to recapture the Pratsanites, cleaving a wedge between the Allied center and right. The majority of troops were now fully engaged, despite an attempted counterattack by the Allies in the north. They were thwarted, compelling the retreat of the Allied right flank. Russian guards seeking to dislodge the French from the heights were ambushed by a French leftward assault, prompting the withdrawal from the battlefield. An order to retreat eastward was dispatched to the Allied left, yet it either went unheeded or proved impracticable, as the French launched assault from the north. In a desperate bid to escape, the Russians endeavored to traverse the ice-covered Satachan Pond, only to be decimated by French artillery fire, resulting in numerous casualties. The battle culminated in resounding victory for the French, with 36,000 Allied soldiers either killed or captured, compared to Napoleon's losses of just 9,000. Despite their triumph, Napoleon's forces were too fatigued to pursue the retreating enemy, signaling the continuation of the conflict. Thus, Napoleon remained resolved to press on, ushering in a transition from the War of the Third Coalition to the War of the Fourth Coalition.